Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. We're going to take a first look at building a DraftKings lineup for Week 9 of NFL. Man, I cannot believe that we're over halfway through the NFL season already. It feels like it just started, but here we are, just kind of rolling all the way through it. I appreciate you guys coming back for this video every single week. It gives us a nice jumping off point. It is Monday morning at 10:15 a.m. Pacific time. These plays some of them will still be viable by the time Sunday rolls around. Some of them are just the best thing that we can put together on Monday morning until we find out all the news that comes out throughout the week. Till we find out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday practice reports. I write my article for ESPN Plus on Wednesday. That gets published on Thursday. We record the Edge podcast on Thursdays. That gets published Thursday night and is out for the rest of the weekend. I come back and do Twitch streams on Friday, taking questions from all of my subscribers at 3 p.m. Eastern on Friday, and then the last 45 minutes before lock every Sunday morning on the Anti-Tinkercast on Twitch. Links to all my other socials are right below in the description. Click show more if you want to see them. If you're new to the channel, thank you for being here. I would love to see you again. So please click that subscribe button and ring the notifications bell. And if you could, please drop a like on this video before you leave. Let's just get right to it. There's no reason to dilly-dally. We're going to start here. The Millie Maker, just like every single week. Chat says the NCR is bumping. Yep. Can't get copyright / can't do that. No strikes for me. Patrick Mahomes, guys. He's good. You should play him. Probably not in your cash game lineups. But do not fade Patrick Mahomes. Also, do not fade Todd Gurley. That's a free tip. Have some shares of Patrick Mahomes in your lineups. In fact, stack the Chiefs literally every week in cash games until it stops working. If you haven't been doing that at least once a week in tournaments for 8 weeks, you've been doing daily fantasy football wrong. He's still not in play for me in cash games at 7,100. They have spread out some of the quarterbacks here. The easiest place to attack has been the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Cam Newton at 6,600. If we can fit him in, I think he's a great play. We've seen mid-20s points from him way more consistently this year than last. He has been the quarterback, in my opinion, who has the ability to get you a 30-plus point day since he came into the league, most likely to do so anytime he takes the field. Deshaun Watson has been somebody else who's been in that category as well. Make sure you have your allocations in tournaments. 6,600, probably a bit much for me to want to pay in cash games, but I don't hate it because of the opponent. I think we can find other players that are going to have a 20 to 30 point expectation. Houston going to Denver. Deshaun Watson did just fine. Another 30-point day last week against Miami, and they play real slow. Denver, not the same type of opponent. Denver's defense, not horrible, but not great. And Deshaun Watson, pretty much a great fantasy quarterback. Had this 2-week hiccup. Everybody got off of him last Thursday against Miami, and he went Deshaun Watson against Miami. 5 touchdowns on only 20 attempts. He did lose Will Fuller. I don't think that that's going to make them take a huge step back. It's just going to bump up other players on this team. We'll probably get to them a little bit later in this video, but I haven't looked at wide receiver prices yet, so maybe we will and maybe we won't. Kirk Cousins, 6,200, at least in play against Detroit. My issue is that Detroit plays very slowly. He hasn't posted really big games except for like here, right? On a week-to-week basis, big difference between this and this, right? Big difference between the floor and the ceiling. The floor and the ceiling. Detroit and what they bring to the table is something that he can exploit based on his receiver set. But we'll have to see. Drew Brees at home against the Rams. High scoring expectation here. Are they going to be able to run the ball as effectively as they've run it the last few weeks? Drew Brees, to me, more tournament than cash for that simple reason. They have 2 very viable running backs that they want to get the ball to on the ground. Yes, they throw the ball as well. However, they also have a red zone guy in Taysom Hill that they're going to bring in and possibly cost Drew Brees some touchdowns. That's my issue here. Hard for me to imagine he threw for 30 touchdowns on the season before the season started. I'm still in that camp now. He's probably a 25 to 30 touchdown guy in total. He can have big weeks. This could be one of them. The Rams have been a little bit leaky against opposing passers. But I'd kind of rather roster Jared Goff. Again, he's 6K. We've got 30-point upside with this cat, right? 6K for a quarterback is kind of where I like to be in cash, or lower if possible. When the Rams allow over 20 real life points in a game, Jared Goff has pretty much averaged well over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. We can look through the sheet. 3 touchdowns, 27 points. Gave up 31 here, 321. Gave up 31 here, 465.5. Gave up 23 here, 354.3. When they blow people out, it tends to be more of a Gurley script, as expected, right? So his big games, last year we used him when they were playing bottom 5 pass defenses. That's when he would thrive. This year, we want to play teams that can keep up with them. We want to play Goff against teams that can keep up with him. And in my opinion, New Orleans should be able to keep up with them. We saw a return to glory for Russ last week. 3 touchdowns, but only 17 attempts. He has to be hyper efficient to beat his expectation. This is my problem. You're just not going to get 30 or 35 attempts out of him unless a game turns into a massive shootout. As much as we've ridden Russ the last few years, they're just not throwing the ball 30 or 40 times anymore, and this is a massive problem. Yes, he has 3 touchdowns each of the last 3 weeks. To say that he can continue throwing 3 touchdowns when he's averaging 20 passes a game is impossible. The regression monster will be coming if he only throws it that many times. Okay? That is an impossibility for him to keep up. Trubisky against Buffalo. In Buffalo, tough place to go. Trubisky's numbers have been tremendous, but I don't know that we can keep that up there. Matt Ryan against Washington at 5,700. Baker Mayfield with the coach being fired against Kansas City. This is an interesting play, to be honest. We'll see who gets brought in as the head coach and the offensive coordinator. They just got fired when I'm on stream doing this video. I haven't really dug into the new OC and the play caller and who's doing what for this team to see what they're going to try and go after with Baker Mayfield for the rest of this season. I think that he at least makes a good tournament play this week. Because of his price, I think that he's in play for cash, but I don't know how much I like him over somebody like Goff at 400 more. Phillip Rivers against Seattle, same story. Minnesota, Stafford facing Minnesota. Fitzpatrick against Carolina, interesting at 5,500. But to be very honest, guys, Alex Smith against Atlanta is interesting. If you can stomach it. You know? If you can stomach it, I think that that's not terrible. If you need the extra 1,000. For me, I'm going to start with Jared Goff. That's just where I'm going to go, guys. I think it's too easy. That's kind of where I want to be. Just a simple play and keep it simple sometimes. Todd Gurley. He's good. He's very, very good. $10K. Scored 39 fantasy points. 9.8. 30.6 fantasy points. Bumped him up to 10K again. 36.5 fantasy points. What? Why did Todd Gurley's price come down? I don't get it. I don't get it. I kind of don't even need to overthink that. I want to see if I can fit him in there. Melvin Gordon, injured last week. We'll have to see if he's ready to go. They expect him to return to full strength. We will see. Have to watch practice reports for that one. I'm not going to plug him into a first look lineup. I do like Christian McCaffrey here. Going up against Tampa Bay. This has kind of been flowcharty for us, right? This is where we look for running back and quarterback and everything upside. They're going to be able to move down the field consistently. Christian McCaffrey, can I fit him in a jam him in situation? We'll see. Who's cheaper? Where can we go that's cheaper? I'll tell you what. Phillip Lindsey did a great job last week, right? We thought that he would see a little bit more usage. He did. They can't just give him the ball 30 times. That's not going to happen. I think he's an 18 to 22 touchback with Freeman out, and he gets the goal line work. And he looked good doing it. I don't mind him at 5,500 if Freeman is out. Adrian Peterson coming off of a huge week and facing Atlanta has never really been utilized with great usage in the passing game. He did catch a touchdown, but it was only on one target last week. Don't expect more. Chat's going crazy. Chat says Chubb, Peterson versus Falcons. I don't hate that. Jordan Howard, Lamar Miller, or Chris Thompson. Okay. I mean, let's look for a cheaper guy. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got early in the week. Chubb's 4,500 against KC. Don't hate that. Again, we have to figure out what we're going to get, right? From a new OC. They did utilize him more in the passing game this week. 3 targets is encouraging, at least. 18 carries. He is a candidate to bust one anytime he takes the field. The problem is, how far behind are they going to be playing from, and can they pound the rock with him 15 to 20 times? So that's a situation there. Eckler, I guess maybe, but not thrilled to do it. If MG3 is out, not thrilled. Who else is cheap? Johnson, Ridley, Latavius Murray, 5,100. Judge Ito at 37. You know, right now, I'm okay with Chubb. I'm okay with Nick Chubb. Do any of these guys play in the afternoon? Yeah. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. For lineup building purposes, always put your latest player in the flex spot. We're going to go with Gurley in the flex, so that if you're chasing somebody, you give yourself the maximum flexibility to change your lineup to differentiate in case you're blocked. If somebody has 3 more points than you and you know that they have Gurley going into the afternoon games, you probably shouldn't play Gurley also. You need to be able to pivot off of him. If you leave him in your running back spot and you block the flex spot with somebody who's already playing early, you don't get to pick from a wide receiver, a tight end, or a running back in that spot. You're limited to only picking a running back there. If you use your flex spot for your latest playing player, it allows you to swap to any position that you want, gives you a wider swath of players to pick from to be able to chase down people in your head-to-heads that might have you blocked, especially when playing a really highly owned player like Todd Gurley, who's going to be like probably 50 to 80% owned in cash games. You need to leave yourself outs. So looking at the wide receiver, instead of looking at wide receivers, let's just pick our 3K defense. Fine. See how much thought went into that for the first look, guys? I'll put way more thought into that as the week goes on, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'll put way more thought into the defense. Right now, for the first look, we just kind of plug in a 3K guy. Let's plug in the tight end so that we can see what we got. We got 4,800 left. Cheap tight ends, what do we have? Herndon's done pretty well on limited usage, right? We said this before. On the Anti-Tinkercast, people were asking me, what about Herndon? He had a big game last week. He did catch a touchdown this week. He did have 7 targets in week 7. He went back to this 2. This is a CJ Uzoma line. Okay, he's a CJ Uzoma clone playing against Miami, who plays super duper slow, right? They do not push the pace. They're one of the 3 slowest teams in the league, if not the slowest team in the league, because I don't have this week's pace numbers yet. But they play real darn slow. So you're not going to get a whole lot of snaps from the Jets in this game. No one's outscoring Gurley. Who are we kidding? I mean, I'm still going to give myself the option, right? If I'm blocked, I'm not just going to wave the white flag and go, well, he's ahead of me by 2 points and he has 1 player left and it's Gurley and I have 1 player left and it's Gurley. So I'm just going to leave Gurley there and take the L. No, I'm going to switch to somebody else and maybe Gurley has 20 points and that guy has 28. You kind of have to do that or you're costing yourself money. So looking at cheap tight ends, obviously at tight end, Travis Kelce, play him every week, especially against Cleveland. Go for it. Greg Olsen, love the play against Tampa Bay. Too expensive for this lineup. David Njoku posted a 0 last week, but going against Kansas City this week and with a new coaching staff, I expect these 3 weeks to be more the norm than this week, especially with Pittsburgh being bad and Cleveland chasing. For him to get 0 touchdowns, or not touchdowns, 0 targets is offensive malpractice, and thankfully they fired everybody there. OJ Howard bumped up to 4,300 going against Carolina, who gives up points in chunks to tight ends. Don't hate it. Don't know if we can fit him in this lineup, but I definitely think he's in play. Kyle Rudolph, we've seen elevated usage out of him, right? He's getting that usage now that I like, 5 to 7 targets in most weeks. Problem is he's very touchdown dependent, and the touchdowns have not been going to the tight end thus far. If you think that he can get himself into the end zone, then fine, but if not, not really loving it. Not really much here at the low end that we can go after. Maybe Charles Clay at 2,700. Going up against Chicago. Again, tight end is just kind of a mess. I'm kind of being forced to pay up for one, and I don't like it. Hooper's put up some good games. Usually, these are outliers, guys. These are more what he's going to look like. He came back to it here. Outliers. more the norm. Okay? People are always going to be chasing this. Reynolds is now 4,500. Welp. I think he's in play, but again, I'm looking for a super cheap guy. Sammy Coates week. It's never Sammy Coates week. Let you know a little secret. Cam Meredith, no usage. Ratley's been getting a little bit of love. Again, a thin play, but you're not going to get anything that isn't thin down here. Gazelle. A couple of big games in a row. I got my Gazelle shirt on order from RotoWear. If y'all want the Smiz Life shirt, type ! shirt in the chat. That'll give you a link to buy the Smiz Life shirt. David Moore. This is a guy who's been catching touchdowns consistently. But again, 11 targets, 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. Not sustainable. If you're okay with his lines without the touchdowns, okay? If you're okay with 7 points here, you would have been okay with 13 points here. Here you would have gotten 6. That is more likely what he is going to post. And his touchdowns are not sustainable here. Snead at 42. Interesting. Tampa Bay against slot receivers has been a target. So Carolina. Funchess on the outside. Moore, Samuel. I mean, they do get McCaffrey in the slot as well. Moore plays most of his snaps outside. 4,300 though. I like the inclusion in the offense. I'll go with DJ Moore there. We'll double up on Carolina players. That's fine with me for this first look. Can we afford the high dollar guys? We have a 61 average salary. Thielen is amazing, okay? First game that he didn't have over 10 targets, still at 100 yards and a touchdown. Absolute monster. Antonio Brown. Everybody thinks he's having a bad year. He's averaging 22.2 fantasy points a game. D-Hop. Without Fuller, his targets have gone through the roof in past years at 8,300. Can we afford him? Maybe yes, maybe no. Julio Jones, 7,900 against Washington, who we just saw get torched for over 100 yards by OBJ as well. Michael Thomas, after a few mediocre weeks, can't guard Mike still, but 7,600 seems like a very good price to me for Michael Thomas. I might have to just plug him. I mean, it's 7,600. How am I not just immediately plugging him? Cooks, Landry, Manny Sanders at 64. Cooper Kupp remains out. I mean, is it that easy? I mean, is it really just that? I mean, is there somebody else that I'm plugging? I mean, again, take the 2 touchdowns out, and he has, 7 points. So, like, we got to mind that. God, DT is 4,500. I like DT more than I like Reynolds. We saw the usage as well that Godwin was getting from Fitz. Don't hate that. Where's Parker? Parker's 46. Again, Parker's a play for me if everybody's out again. Okay, so Parker's in play for me if Stills is out and Grant is out. If everybody's out, then fine. Check Sutton, DT probably. Okay, I mean, if Thomas is traded, then Sutton is the guy, right? Like, that's when I want to play him. And at 3,900, if DT is traded, that's where I'm going to go. But for right now, I honestly think at this price range, where we sit on Monday, it's got to be DT. It's got to be DT. And if we get news that everybody else is out at wide receiver for Miami, then it's Parker. But I can just plug Parker in now and then pivot down to DT later. So that's going to be the lineup, guys. That's what we got. Goff, Chubb, McCaffrey, Moore, Parker, Thomas, Clay, Gurley, and Texans defense. Defense, it's just a 3K defense. I didn't even look at who it was. I don't hate the Texans there, though, against Denver and as many picks and interceptions and turnovers as they've had. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all for being here. Click a like. Take the time. Cost you nothing to click that subscribe button or to watch this other video that we got right here. And I'll catch you guys next time with our next video on YouTube, or hopefully I'll see you on twitch.tv/Al_Smissel. Bye.